Calaroga Shark Media.
Hello and welcome to Palace Intrigue. I am your host, Mark Francis. Diana Elsa, in a piece for the News, wrote, "A friend of His Majesty has told the Daily Beast that Charles would be thrilled if the Montecito malcontents spent more time back in the UK. However, it strikes me this is one of those be careful what you wish for via pals press proxy situations. Because what would it really look like if Harry, Meghan and the kids and their caravan of aides, nannies and personal aromatherapists all started to spend more time in Britain? In short, a nightmare. A nightmare for Buckingham and Kensington palaces and all who toil within. Consider what we know of Harry, a man who talks about healing and yet permanently seems moments away from self-combusting out of outrage and self-righteousness. The Sussex's prickly, if not antagonistic relationship with some quarters of the UK press would make things positively flammable. For one thing, Harry and Meghan would be photographed, snapped, and pursued like gazelle on the Serengeti. The ensuing tabloid hullabaloo of a sideshow would end up well and truly ruining whatever was going on the main stage in the royal circus tent. What do you think people would prefer to click on or read about? The King's diligent ongoing efforts to reduce food waste, or a 47-picture gallery of Meghan stepping out of a fleet of Range Rovers in 5 figures worth of caramel cashmere to pick up a Pret protein bowl? Then there is the fact that this is the Sussexes in the UK scenario. It seems unlikely that they would be happy to sit at home, wherever home might be, twiddling their thumbs and replanting the herbaceous borders. The Duke especially would want to be out and about on charity hustlings, energetically supporting his UK patronages. And Meghan, given that she is guest-edited Vogue, supported a cookbook and helped to release a charity clothing collection in a matter of months, while pregnant and on maternity leave, and also while on the royal clock, imagine what she could do now, long since emancipated from clucking courtiers and in real need of a PR win. The Duke and Duchess would be, at least, a painful distraction for Crown Inc., and at worst could end up running a fully fledged counter court. Jane Marguerite Tippett, the author of Once a King, the lost memoir of Edward VIII, draws interesting parallels between Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex, and the Duke of Windsor, Edward VIII, who famously abdicated the throne for Wallis Simpson. Tippett suggests that Prince Harry's future might mirror the Duke of Windsor's trajectory, particularly in terms of diminishing influence. Speaking with Nine Honey, Tippett observes that Prince Harry's impact may wane over time. "I think it will be a future of less and less importance in terms of who he is," she says. This viewpoint draws on the historical context of Edward VIII, who, despite his long tenure as Prince of Wales and brief reign as king, gradually became a less central figure in the royal narrative. The comparison extends to the duration of their royal careers. While Edward had a lengthy period in the royal spotlight, Prince Harry's time as a working royal was significantly shorter, about 5 years. Tippett notes, she emphasizes that Prince Harry's relevance is closely tied to the royal institution, and his separation from it might lead to a gradual decline in public significance. The parallels between the two dukes are striking, especially their shared experience of leaving their royal roles for American divorcees. This aspect has already been a point of comparison in media narratives. Both sought a half-in, half-out role in royal life, but ultimately moved away from the monarchy. Tippett also points out the similarities in their post-royal life choices, specifically their involvement with major US media entities. For the Duke of Windsor, it was Life magazine, and for Prince Harry, it's deals with Netflix and Penguin Random House. This aspect of their lives indicates a continued desire to remain in the public eye, albeit in different capacity than their royal roles. According to PR expert, Princess Eugenie and Princess Beatrice are effectively managing their public image, especially when compared to Kate. Despite not being active working members of the royal family, they have maintained a lower profile, which seems to be a strategic choice. Luana Ribera, founder of Dauntless PR, shared her insights with GB News, empathizing with Beatrice and Eugenie's challenging situations due to their association with their father, Prince Andrew. Riviera noted, Eugenie and Beatrice's deliberate strategy is working amid Kate comparison. They both come across as perfectly likable in their own right, and they seem to be just getting on with their roles as minor royals and, more importantly, mothers. The princesses have largely kept out of the limelight recently, which I imagine is a deliberate strategy. I think their best tactic is simply to continue as they are, adopting the quiet dignity which has worked so well for Queen Elizabeth II and William and Kate. Palace Intrigue will be right back. Hopefully you were able to finish off binging The Crown's final season over the weekend. The remainder of this episode of Palace Intrigue will be spoilers for the remaining episodes. Variety writes, there are two vacuums at the heart of the final installment of The Crown. The first is the death of Princess Diana, those final weeks. The tragic car accident and funeral took up the entirety of the season's first part, released last month. The second is the death of Queen Elizabeth II, the series' central subject. The Crown couldn't capture the Queen's 2022 passing on screen. Creator Peter Morgan chose to end his magnum opus well before the present day. But the end of Elizabeth's life naturally hovers over the end of the television show, depicting the first half-century of her reign. Perhaps inevitably then the home stretch of The Crown is shaped more by what it does not or cannot portray than what the audience actually sees. Diana has dominated the entire back half of The Crown, a decade-by-decade dramatization of the British monarchy, from the aftermath of World War II to the 21st century. Her sudden absence from the show leads to a sense of disorientation, echoing the emotions the world experienced in unison over 25 years ago. Without this beacon of charisma, The Crown feels quiet, its colours muted, its volume dimmed. The mood is both true to the post-Diana moment and a less-than-ideal note on which to end a project of such ambition and scope. It doesn't help that Morgan has restricted himself to a moment with major milestones that lack the fizz of a tabloid scandal or the sorrow of a premature death. For that, Morgan would have had to extend the show into the late 2010s, when American actress Meghan Markle made a seismic impact on the royals, rivaled only by that of her mother-in-law. Instead, The Crown works with what's available: the courtship of Prince William and Kate Middleton, the death of Princess Margaret due to complications from a stroke, and the marriage of Prince Charles and Camilla Parker Bowles after decades of partnership. The unique structure of The Crown poses a particular dramatic challenge. Like Charles and Diana's generation of royals before them, Morgan has to cultivate William and his brother Harry into proper protagonists, a tricky baton to pass when the audience already knows our time with them is limited. William, Harry and Kate themselves never come into focus, with the script often leaning on vague allusions to the brothers' future discord to fill in the gaps. Of the three, only William gets a whole episode. Harry's infamous Nazi Halloween costume is a tertiary subplot in the series finale, with a reference to joining the military, the only half-hearted attempt to tie off his thread. Meanwhile, The Hollywood Reporter adds, The Crown was never going to go out in a blaze of burn-it-all-down glory. The series has generally been deeply empathetic to and respectful of the Windsors, not that that's ever stopped the British tabloids from clutching their pearls over it. Still, its best runs were sharp, lively, and yes, sometimes unflattering enough to have a ring of truth. Philip could be a supportive partner, but also a selfish one. Elizabeth could be in tune with her public in one episode and wildly out of step with it the next, and so on. But the final 6 episodes of the 6th and last season dispense with much of that nuance and much of its formerly gripping narrative power along with it. Major spoilers ahead. In the series finale, the nearly 80-year-old Elizabeth wrestles with the decision on whether to cede her throne in favour of Charles. She ultimately decides not to, under the advisement of her younger self, played by Claire Foy, who points out that whatever private, real Elizabeth may have existed once, she's long since been subsumed into the queen she was required to be. This system is a dreadful thing to inflict upon people. It's not natural, it's not fair, it's not kind. The 20-something version acknowledges, but you seem to thrive in it, and more importantly, it seems to thrive under you. What this admission means for an institution meant to outlive Elizabeth, The Crown does not dare to examine. In a final conversation with his wife, Philip, Jonathan Pryce, lightly reflects that whatever might happen to the monarchy after they're gone, it's not our problem. And there you have it. If you'd like to email us, our address is thepalaceintrigue@gmail.com. Please follow us on Apple or Spotify, or if you're on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. It really helps us out. I'm Mark Francis. My thanks to John McDermott. This is Palace Intrigue. Good times.